Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. My name is Jay and today we have some pear themed content for you. And I am joined by my beautiful Hispanic friend, Heidi.
Hi.
A little bit of background on our friendship. Heidi is married to Justin, and Justin is Tom's best friend of like, what, 13, 14 years? Like, it's many, like over a decade of friendship. And so when I started dating Tom, I very quickly met Heidi and Justin, and our friendship has slowly evolved over the years, but I'd say probably the last 2 years we've become like really close. And then this last year, especially with me starting the YouTube journey and the homesteading journey, we have found similar interests and do a lot of fun stuff like we're going to do today together, and that's been awesome, and we've explored that a lot over the last 6 months. So Heidi, tell me a little bit about your homesteading background.
Well, it's new for me. I just kind of started diving into canning and food preserving and things like that this summer, influenced by you. And it's really fun. I think it was easy for me to kind of take an interest in it because I'm Hispanic and Italian, and so food is something that's really important in our cultures. And so I grew up in the kitchen, and I love to cook and explore different ideas with food. So I think it's just a fun time. It's just another extension of cooking. So I like it.
Definitely. I remember how big of a deal it was when she made her rice for me for the first time, and both Justin and Tom were both like, no, this is legit. Like, you're about to taste true Hispanic food, and I was honored. So awesome. All right, very cool. Well, we are going to go pear picking today, and actually one of the recipes that I'm going to be showing you in this video, Heidi discovered because you follow Ball Canning on Instagram.
Yeah.
And when she texted me about it, I was like, how have I made it this far? And I'm not following Ball Canning on Instagram. And they have a, what was it, a salted caramel pear butter? Is that what it was?
Yeah.
And you actually make this one in the crock pot, and I've never done any preservation in the crock pot before. So we're going to go over that together. But for now, we're going to go pick some pears.
All right. I'm excited.
Yay. All right, so we are out here picking pears, and I just wanted to mention that the way you know if a pear is ready to be picked, you just gently lift up, and if it comes right off, then it is ripe. Also, pears ripen from the inside out, so when you're choosing pears, you definitely want to choose a pear that's nice and firm, because if it's soft at all, it's going to be softer on the inside than it is on the outside. So you want to make sure that you pick a fruit that is very firm. Well, you guys, it is several days later. I think it was Saturday when Heidi and I went and picked those pears, and now it is Thursday, and I wanted to do this on Tuesday. I had something come up that took my entire day away from me, but that's okay. Life happens, right? And so now it's Thursday and we're doing this. The good news is pears last a pretty long time. In fact, I washed my pears. They're over here in the sink, and I actually think that they still are a little underripe, but this is the day that I have to do this, and so we're doing it. I'd like them to be a little riper, but here we are. We're moving forward. So what is on the agenda for today? We are making salted caramel pear butter in the crock pot. I've got my crock pot over here, and we're actually starting with that because it's going to cook in the crock pot while we work on our next project. The next project are pear oatmeal muffins. I've never made them before, but I have some really awesome, just generalized muffin tips to teach you. I'm actually going to make a separate video at some point teaching you how to make bakery style muffins, because after much research and trial and error, I finally figured out how to get really big, awesome bakery quality muffins. And you can use these tips for any and all kinds of muffins that you make. So I'm gonna go over that with you in this video as well. And then we are going to be canning pears just in a light simple syrup. And I'm also going to be peeling, slicing, maybe I'll dice them, I don't know yet exactly how I want to do it, and preserving them in the food saver. And so I'm gonna preserve up what I want to preserve up by canning and baking, and then we're going to just go ahead and freeze the rest. Now I wanted to make the salted caramel pear butter, I wanted to triple that, however I don't have enough half-pint jars. The recipe is on the Ball Canning website. I'll link it down in the description, and it makes 4 half-pint jars, which is like nothing. And I want to give these as gifts. So I want to triple it, but I don't have that many half-pint jars, and this week has been so crazy. I've not had time to go to the store to get more. But for the sake of this video, I'm going to I do have 4 half-pint jars, so I'll show you that, and then I took out and set aside the pears that I'll need to make those other 2 batches, and I'll do that another day when I have jars. The rest of these are all washed up, as you guys have heard me say a million times. I always wash the fruit that has an outer skin with soap. I'm a crazy person, and I just get so skeeved out when I don't know what's been on my fruit, what hands have touched them, yada yada. And so I washed all of these with soap and water, and they're in my sink and ready to go. I have my apple peeler here, and I'm just going to go through and peel all of them. I'm not super excited about it, but you gotta do what you gotta do. I follow Melissa K. Norris on YouTube and Instagram. I think she's wonderful. She's a wealth of knowledge, and I'll link her YouTube channel down below. I watched her, she had a pear video as well, and she actually blanches her pears for just like 30 seconds, puts them in cold water, and then her peel just slipped right off. And so I tried it before I filmed. I did a little test run. I don't think my pears are ripe enough to do that. I tried, I have it right here actually, and that was like, I couldn't really make any progress on it. I did try, and it didn't really work. So that's fine. I'm just gonna peel them. Someday I want to get the KitchenAid attachment that lets you put the fruit on, and it both cores it and peels it for you. You just like turn it on and it does it. That looks amazing, but you know me, it's taking me a little while financially to collect my homesteading appliances and supplies, and that's okay. A little at a time is fine. So for now, I have this. This is what we're gonna use. I have a bowl of water over here, and I've got some lemon juice, and I'm gonna put a hefty splash of lemon juice in my water. And as I cut the pears, I'm going to put them in here to soak while I work on them so that they don't turn brown. And in fact, Asian pears are the least acidic type of pear that you can preserve with. They're not really the best for preserving, but they were what was available in my area. And so I think having the pears hang out in lemon juice isn't gonna hurt anything. In fact, it might be a benefit to us in terms of food safety. So that's fine. I will put them in here while I work on them, and let's get started on that. All right, in Melissa's video, she scooped the core out with a spoon. And so I just tried it, and it was a success, but let me see. I think it would take me less time and energy to just quarter it and cut down the middle. I think that's what I'm gonna do. Yeah, that's what I'll do. All right, and then I'm gonna quarter it again, get slices like this. Peeled, cored, and coarsely chopped. So let's actually chop those up a little bit more. And we're cooking these in the crock pot, so I can see why it would be an advantage to cut these into smaller pieces. So let's do that. Yeah, so I think I'm gonna do more chop like that. And that's how I will do these. All right, so I've got all of my pears chopped up and sitting in this lemon juice mixture. Now I'm going to drain them out and put them into the crock pot, and I'm okay with some of that lemon water getting in there. In fact, I prefer it because I am working with Asian pears here. All right, and then the recipe calls for 1/3 cup of apple cider. And we just happen to have some because Tom and I love going and getting apple cider and fry cakes anytime. Every fall, we always do that. We did that over the weekend. And then the recipe calls for 2 tablespoons of lemon juice. But again, I am a little worried about the fact that these are Asian pears. And so I think I've had them soaking in the lemon water, and that helps. I think I'm probably going to do, let's see, that's 3. I'm going to double it. I'm going to do 4 tablespoons of lemon juice. The only thing that it could possibly affect is the flavor, but I really think between the apple cider, the pears themselves, we're also going to be adding brown sugar in here. I think it'll be plenty sweet enough that the extra 2 tablespoons of lemon juice won't affect it too much. And I'd much rather err on the side of safety than flavor when it comes to canning, especially with me giving these as gifts. So I did 4 tablespoons of lemon juice instead of 2, and it makes me feel better, especially because they were also soaking as well. So we are going to put the lid on our crock pot, and we are going to cook this on high for 40 minutes. But that's why I wanted to start with this, because this can be cooking away over here. I just have to maybe occasionally stir it. And the goal here in cooking this in the crock pot is to get the pears nice and soft. So let's move on to the next project. So I promise there are methods to my madness. And the reason I wanted to do the pears that we are going to put in the freezer, you think you would do those last after you're done working with your pears, like what's left over you'll freeze. However, you need to flash freeze your pears before you vacuum seal them. Because especially for mine, they're very wet, which is just a difficult thing to do with the food saver in general. But then also, when you, if you were to put wet pears into a vacuum sealed bag and put them straight into the freezer, they're just going to be a big lump of frozen pears. And so to flash freeze them, they will stay individual better than if you were to just put them in, room temperature and wet. So I'm going to they've been hanging out. Oh, by the way, I ended up just slicing them. I didn't chop them or anything like that. So I just have like normal slices, and I'm going to put them on a cookie sheet and put them down in my deep freeze for an hour. And then we will have time to move on to the next project. And then by the time that's done, we can revisit these, and I'll show you how to use the food saver model that I have, which, by the way, I love. I've talked about this before. I did a video where I talked about my new homestead appliances, the food saver being one of them. I use my food saver all the time. I absolutely love it, and I can't wait to show you how to use it. If you don't have one, I hope I can encourage you to invest. They're really not that expensive, and wow, are they an excellent food preservation tool. So many uses. All right, I actually don't have that many. I think I probably ended up with 7 or 8 pears left over, because what is down in the sink is what we're going to use to can pears just in syrup. And then I still need 2 pears for the muffins, and then the pears that are over here still in the bag are for my 2 extra batches of the butter. So I don't really have that many leftover pears, but I do want some to put in the freezer over the winter time. I can make muffins again, or I can make bread, or I can make a pie. So I do enjoy having fresh fruit that I picked or grew or what have you, got from the farmer's market, to use over the winter time. So I'm gonna go stick these down in the freezer. So we are going to move on to the muffins, but if you watched my creating my homesteading room video, and I know a lot of you did, and I'm so grateful, I got really good feedback and some really, really kind comments on that. But I opened up and got very vulnerable with you guys about my anxiety and depression disorder and how it has hindered me in being a good steward of my home. And I, you know, was very vulnerable and opened up about that. So I want to show you guys a small victory. One of the things that I had a really hard time with was mail. And this is going to sound really stupid, but if you know that like each of us have our own weird thing that we just can't deal with when we have anxiety and or depression. And mine was mail. I don't know why. It overwhelmed me. I never wanted to deal with it. I am of the generation where I pay all my bills online, so very rarely do I get something in the mail that I need, and it's just one more thing that I have to deal with piling up on my plate. And so I, and Tom, bless him, hated this, still hates it, because I can't say I've totally got it under control, but I'm working on it. And so I would stuff mail in every crevice, nook, and cranny in this house that I could. And as I was starting to organize, I felt like Mr. Dursley from Harry Potter with the Hogwarts letter. I was like, where is all of this mail coming from? It's ridiculous. So I have this hutch, beautiful, beautiful hutch behind me, and it has doors here and drawers here, and this this cabinet door here was so full of mail that I could hardly close it. And as I was cleaning out the dining room, which is right across from me, I wanted to start putting things where they belong. That was part of what I had talked about in that video, was a lot of things didn't have a home, and I wanted to create a home so that I could keep things tidy and put things where they actually belong. And this is a great spot, and so I wanted to put my mixing bowls in here. So I cleared out all of that mail and have my mixing bowls where they belong. They have a home. And I'm showing you this because I need 2 bowls. A large one and a medium one for the muffins. And so I have my bowls and I got them out of their home. Anyway, just wanted to share my small victory with you. Now let's make some muffins. So for these muffins, the first thing you want to do in a large bowl is add 1 cup of old-fashioned rolled oats and 1 cup of milk. And remember the tip that I'm always telling you guys about, you want to do dry ingredients first and then wet ingredients, which actually we also need 1 cup of all-purpose flour in our other bowl. So why don't we do that first before we get this wet? Which I do have another 1 cup measuring cup, but it's nice to try and be efficient the best we can, you know? So let's add 1 cup of flour to our medium bowl, and now I can add in the milk. I always keep whole milk in the house. It's my favorite, so that's what we're using. Use whatever milk you have. All right, and I'm going to just give that a nice stir, and you want the oats to sit in the milk for, I don't know, 10, 15 minutes, and we're going to let this sit while we move on and get our dry ingredients combined in the medium bowl. So as you saw, we added 1 cup of all-purpose flour. We also need half a teaspoon of baking soda and 1 teaspoon of baking powder. Yep, half a teaspoon baking soda, 1 teaspoon baking powder. Half a teaspoon of salt, which I'm really bad about just putting in some salt. I like pretty much never measure it. And 1 teaspoon of cinnamon. We just whisk that together to combine. And then the next steps require the oats, and they've not been sitting long enough yet, so we are going to give those a few more minutes. I did stir the pears that are over here in the crock pot, and it has been about 40 minutes, but they are not fork tender yet. You want them to be soft enough that you could very easily put a fork in and back out, and they're really not yet. And I think I'm not surprised that I have to cook mine a little longer because, like I said, they are a little bit underripe, so they're a little harder than a ripe pear would be. So I am gonna have to cook those a little longer, but that's fine. We're not in any hurry. In fact, I'm having a really busy week, and so I was a little nervous about filming this because I was afraid I'd run out of energy, and I am really tired, like I feel fatigued, but I'm just moving slow and having a nice day in my kitchen, and it's really cold outside this morning. I let the chickie girls out and went out in like a full winter coat. It's super cold. And when I came back inside, probably because I opened the door, the window was all like fogged over from the cold of the outside hitting the heat of the kitchen. And it was so nice and just, I felt so cozy. And you know, it's not lost on me how incredibly lucky and blessed I am to be able to have a warm, cozy home and to be able to walk inside and I smell cinnamon and it's warm and there's a lot of love in this house, and I count my blessings, and this home and the environment that Tom and I have created inside of it is absolutely one of those blessings. So on a day like this where I'm tired and the outside world has me stressed and feeling kind of down, I just praise God and count my blessings because I have so much to be thankful for, and the opportunity to be home on a Thursday baking and preserving in my kitchen with you guys is absolutely one of those blessings. So, yeah, I'm just gonna give these oats a few more minutes and then we will come back and I'll tell you the next steps. All right, our oat mixture has been sitting definitely for 15 minutes at this point, so we are going to move on. To the oat mixture, we are going to add 1/4 cup melted coconut oil. You could also use vegetable oil, but I prefer coconut oil. We are going to add 1/2 cup of brown sugar and a splash of vanilla extract. I am running pretty low. I really need to get more vanilla beans, but man, they're so expensive. All right, now we're just going to combine that. Oh my goodness, that smells so good. I love baking. All right, now we are going to add our dry ingredients into our wet. And get that all nice and mixed together. And then the very last ingredient are the pears. Now, it said you want 1.5 cups of chopped pears, and that said that that's about 1.5 pears. However, I had a really big honking one, and I figured that would do the trick. So I diced it up, by the way. It is so good. And I have about a cup and a half here. Now, Tom and I both do not enjoy desserts with fruit very much. And so I diced these pieces up teeny, teeny, tiny so that the flavor's there, but biting into the fruit is not as evident. I am personally really trying to get over that. The problem for me is that I have a bit of a textured aversion to things that are soggy. I'm one of those people, I don't remember if I've said this on this channel yet. I eat my cereal, milk first. I'll get a bowl of milk. I'll put an ice cube in it because I love cold milk. I'll go sit down on my couch with the box of cereal and I will pour my cereal one bite at a time, because if the cereal is even the slightest bit soggy, I can't do it. I can't eat it. I literally can't even do it. So that's why I like apple pie. Apples are crisp. I eat an apple, I bite into it, and it's crunchy and crisp. And so the idea of taking a bite of apple and it's mushy makes me want to vomit. But I'm really trying to get over it because I want my future farm to have fruit trees. I want to be able to consume the fruit in all the different ways. And I love the idea of making, like canning apple pie filling and having an apple pie for dessert after dinner on a random weekday. Like, I think it's so romantic and so like farm vibes, but I'm working on it. So anyway, I'm doing it. We're gonna do it, but I diced the pear up into teensy tiny little pieces. All right, you're just folding the pears in here. So this is what we ended up with. So let's very quickly talk about the muffin tin. So I have a few tips here for you. You're gonna end up with beautiful bakery style muffins. Now, when I say bakery style, we have a lot of coffee shops that do a lot of their own baked goods here in the city that I live. And when you walk in and you see the glass display and they've got their baked goods, I'm talking those big, fluffy, tall muffins where the top is just as big as the bottom, and it's fluffy and it's got the crumble or it's got the sugar on top, and it just, oh my, it looks so professional, like a professional baked good. And if you make, like, if you've made homemade chocolate chip muffins, for example, or homemade blueberry muffins, and you don't do these tips, and they're puny, they barely even dome over the top. They're just almost flat sometimes, especially if you use the muffin mixes from the store. They don't rise hardly at all. And so I did a lot of research, tried a lot of different things, and finally found the combination of stuff that gave me really beautiful, tall muffins. Now, keep in mind, however, set your expectations realistically, because I don't think that places that bake professionally for sale use muffin tins the size of home ones. Because even after following all of the tips and getting like a really maximum rise, it's still the size of a home baked muffin, right? Because my muffin tin will only give me a muffin so big. So set your expectations realistically. If you're working with a home sized muffin tin, they're not going to get any bigger than what you can fit in there. So, but aside from that, working with what I have, still, they're impressive and beautiful and delicious. So I left this one empty and this one empty across from each other on purpose. I use liners. Of course, if you don't have liners, you can just spray the inside or wipe the inside with vegetable oil or whatever you need to do to get it to be nonstick. You definitely don't want to skip the nonstick step. And in fact, I have recently been making the habit of giving my liners just each a little spritz, because I can't stand it when you go to take the liner off and there's more muffin stuck to the liner than there is coming off of it. I can't stand it. So I've been giving that a spritz. And then we're ready to load up here. And you want, one of the tricks is to fill your cups all the way to the top. Now, I've read a lot of recipes that say fill a 3/4 of the way or whatever. I'm literally filling it all the way up. Because I'm doing that, you may not end up with the same amount of muffins. So I always just start with one muffin tray, keeping the 2 spots empty. And if I have more than that, then I'll break out another muffin tray. But I start with preparing just one, because I never know how many muffins I'll end up with doing it this way. This amount of batter is literally like down to the spoonful, perfect for the amount of spots that I have in my muffin tin. So that is beautiful. That could not have worked out better. Now, none of these other tips, they all go together. Like just doing one of them is not going to work, but that's especially true for filling up the muffin tins all the way to the top. None of the other tips can compensate for skipping that step. You have to fill them all the way to the top. I tested this, I have tried this with other muffins, and although you do still get a bit of that bakery style effect, you have to fill them all the way up. Now, if you're concerned because you really need the amount of muffins a recipe's telling you it will yield, and you don't want to fill them all the way to the top, double the recipe or perhaps half the recipe, which means add half. So if the recipe calls for a cup of flour, add a cup and a half of flour. You know, that situation, to get more overall volume so that you can fill them all the way to the top and get the same amount of muffins. For me and Tom, it doesn't matter. I'm fine. Let's see, 6, 7, 8. I've got 10 here, and that's fine. We'll just eat 10 muffins. It's no big deal. But if you've got kids or something, or you're bringing them somewhere and you need a certain amount, then just compensate by adding more ingredients. Now, this recipe told us to preheat the oven to 400 degrees. Standard across the board, it doesn't matter what your recipe tells you to preheat your oven to, add 25 degrees. So I have my oven preheated to 425 degrees. These 2 spots here that we left empty, we are going to fill with cold water. I just get cold water out of the sink. It doesn't have to be ice cold or anything crazy like that. So very carefully, because you don't want to get water in any of the other muffin spots, right? And you don't have to fill it all the way to the top. I usually do about halfway because I don't want to spill it. Fill it with water. Now I'm going to put these into my preheated 425 degree oven, and I'm going to bake them. Oh, actually, we have to make the topping. I'm getting ahead of myself here. All right, now let's talk about the topping. I made muffins the other day that had a streusel topping, and I had some left over. I literally could not shove any more topping on top of those muffins. So I didn't want to throw it away because none of this is gonna go bad. This is flour, cinnamon, pecans, butter, and it's all fine. So I just kept it in the container, threw a lid on it, and put it in the fridge. And so we're gonna include that finally. It's been in there for like 2 weeks and I've been waiting to use it. So I'm just gonna kind of move that to the side here, and we're gonna add 2 tablespoons of brown sugar in there, kind of off to the side from those extra ingredients. And then I want to pour my butter that I have melted in the microwave directly on top of that brown sugar. And I'm gonna go slow and try to really get it combined, because the recipe says to dissolve the brown sugar in the butter. Oh, you know what? I guess I could have put the brown sugar in the bowl with the butter. That would have been smart. You know, I do the best I can. We're also gonna add 2 tablespoons of our oats. And then lastly, we wanna add 1/4 tablespoon of cinnamon. And because I like to live life on the wild side, I'm going to add a little bit of vanilla, because I just wanna add vanilla to everything all the time. And it won't hurt to have a little extra moisture in here, because we are adding we have so much dry stuff in here. So I'm just going to kind of get all of this mixed together here. It smells so good. All of these flavors together smell amazing. And the little chunks of cold butter that's in the original topping mixture that I got out of the fridge will melt as it bakes, and that will help as well with all of these dry bits. So I think it's going to work out perfectly. We can get these going in the oven. I'm going to clean up a little bit while they're in there, and then we can start thinking about moving back over to our canning projects. This is good though, because it's getting to be lunchtime, but I don't want to stop while I have my momentum going, because we're actually, I'd say, more than halfway done with the projects for the day, and I'd really like to not sit down until I'm done, because then it's going to be hard for me to get back up. All right, so I'm just going to, using the same measuring spoon here, and it's very crumbly. It's a very crumbly mixture. You know what? I'll just use my hands. It'll be quicker. And I'm just going to add that on top of our muffins. Oh my gosh. And what I was saying was I'll eat one of these muffins with my lunch, and that'll be perfect. That'll be really good. All right, you guys, I have my muffins all topped and ready to go into the oven. Again, I have it preheated to 425 degrees, up from the original 400 stated in the recipe. I am going to bake these for 7 minutes at that elevated temperature. Set a timer. Do not forget about them. 7 minutes. That is the timer for our muffins. Now, the next step that you want to do is, without opening the oven, do not open the oven. You want to decrease your oven temperature to its original stated temperature. So mine was 400. I had it on 425 degrees for 7 minutes. I'm going to decrease it now to 400 degrees. All right, you guys, our muffins are done, but we're gonna talk about those in a minute, because I really wanna move on to these pears. And by the way, I really need that KitchenAid attachment that cores and peels your fruit, because I literally would be done with all of this sitting on my couch with a glass of wine right now if I had that. I spent so much time chopping and peeling and coring pears today. But anyway, I have a big beautiful bowl over here of pears. I'm really pushing the limits here of this, and I've got them sitting in, mostly anyway, there's a couple on top here that aren't, sitting in this water with lemon juice. I just want to point out that I did refresh this. I dumped out the previous water with lemon juice that we were using and made new. Again, I really want these Asian pears to be sitting in the lemon juice water, since they are lower acidity. So I am using the recipe from this book, and it is on page 145, Pears and Syrup, and I'm going to be using a light syrup, which I already have going on the stove. I also have my lids boiling, or they will be soon, and then I have my water bath canner coming up to temperature, and it'll be boiling soon. I'm using the light syrup. The recipe specifies that you can use light or medium. And I'm going to use the light, which is 2 1/4 cups of granulated sugar and 5 1/4 cups of sugar. You bring that to a boil on your stovetop, and then 1 layer at a time, you want to cook the pears in the syrup for approximately 5 minutes until they're heated through. And I've got my jars here ready to go. I got out a new thing of lemon juice ready to go. And so right now I'm just waiting for my sugar and water mixture to start boiling. and we'll be able to get a move on with this. Actually, you know what? While that's coming up to temperature, I can talk to you about my muffins really quick. These actually did not rise, get as big and impressive looking as I kind of played that up to be. The streusel muffins that I made the other day they were really tall and really beautiful. I think it's because these have the pears in them. The pears are very heavy, and so I just don't think they got as big. But they're still really cute. Let me show you. They're still really cute in terms of muffins. They just didn't get quite as tall. I'd say the streusel ones got about this tall, and they were like big and puffy. But again, with I'm assuming because of the pears, maybe they didn't get quite as tall. But that's okay. So let's take a look here. You know, I sprayed these and they're still getting, I hate that. That drives me nuts. Let's see here. So this is what we're working with. Let's try it. Oh, I'm so excited to try this. That's interesting. The pears actually still have a little bit of a crunch. They're not super mushy. Thank goodness. Yeah, wow, they'll still have a crunch. Okay, okay. I'm here for that. Yeah, those aren't bad. I can deal with that texture. Well, overall, the flavor is fantastic. These are really, really good. I think even Tom will like these. And they taste like fall to me. Oh, there was a pecan in that bite. Very good. All right, we are finally at a boil here, so I am going to throw in very carefully some of these pear slices, and you just want to do one layer at a time. You don't want to have this be too full, or else you run the risk of your pears not cooking all the way through and or being heated all the way through, not cooking all the way through. And we don't want that. We want our food to be safe here. So that looks good to me. So I am going to use a slotted spoon to put these in my jars, and you want to leave some space because you're going to be backfilling this with your liquid anyway. So I'm going to start there, and I may add more. We will see. Oh, I lost one. And it's going to take a little bit of time since we are heating these one layer at a time, and I can't just throw them all in. It is going to take a little extra time to do it, but that's okay. All right, I'm still working on getting those pears one layer at a time heated through and put in jars, but I really want to think about this pear butter because these pears have been ready. They're good. They cooked well over 40 minutes. So I currently have the lemon juice, the pears, and the apple cider, and it's been cooking for a long time. The next step is to use an immersion blender, or you could use a food processor and get these blended up. So I think I'm going to use my immersion blender. I hope I don't regret it because these are very hot. So we shall see, but I'm going to give it a shot and see if I can get this blended up. Well, they're breaking up really easily, but it definitely is throwing a little bit of hot liquid on me. All right, well, my tripod chose right now to kick the bucket because of course it would. Why would it not? But this here is the last batch of pears that we heated through, and all of my jars, here I'll move them so you can see them all of my jars have pears in them, but I want to save this last batch of pears. Instead of trying to fill another jar, I want to go through and fill all the jars I have with my liquid, because that's going to change how many pears I can fit in each jar. So I'm going to save this last batch of pears to go back in and add to any jars that need them. So I'm going to go through and add the syrup to each jar here. And then we're going to get the air bubbles out after that, and that will tell us where we're at with syrup and pears. All right, so this last one over here, I'm out of syrup. I don't have enough to add in here. So I'm going to go through now. Let me see if I can adjust the camera. I think that's literally the best I can get. All right, I'm gonna go through with a knife, a clean butter knife, and get out the bubbles. All right, now here's what we have going on. What I did was, I took some of the lemon water that the pears were soaking in as I was chopping them, and I poured the rest. This one barely had any syrup in it, and there was still some syrup left in here, so I poured that back in, and there are still pears in here, and I boiled that. So there's some simple syrup, some pears, and some lemon water from the bowl that they were soaking in this pan, because technically you can water pack pears. So having some of the simple syrup, lemon juice, and also water in the pears is still relatively food safe. Here's the thing with it though. It's hard because every situation is going to be different, especially with me using Asian pears here. These aren't the best pears to be doing this with in the first place. But I do feel pretty good about it because there's so much lemon juice involved, and we are using hot liquid, and in terms of ratio, it's mostly simple syrup. There's not a whole lot of the liquid in each jar that's going to be the lemon juice and water. I'm just going through and pouring some of the simple syrup out of these and into this one, so that, because this one's going to be more lemon than the rest of them, but I feel pretty good about that at this point. So now I'm going to go through and add pears where pears need to be added, because all of them except this first one here have had the bubbles removed. So let's go through and see which ones need more pears and get those added in there. That one needs a lot more pears. All right, you guys, our canner is ready and has been ready. It is boiling away and is like, please put some jars in me. We have got to clean these lids really well with a damp paper towel because we have been working with that simple syrup and it is very sticky. So I'm definitely going to go through and clean my rims really well. I already went through and got the air bubbles out, actually a couple of times, because I went through and backfilled, and we managed to use every last pear. They're all in here. Some of them are filled better than others, but that's okay. The whole float thing has never bothered me. It's not the look that bothers me, it's just that I don't want to waste space. And I wanted to use every last pear, but we did, so that's cool. I'm just going to wipe off these rims, and then I have those lids boiling, and we will put those on in a moment. All right, we have the pears in the water bath canner right now. I really need to move on to this butter. I've needed to for a long time, but it got away from me. So I went ahead and blended it with my Immersion blender, and surprisingly, it blended right up really easily. Now we're gonna add 2.5 cups of dark brown sugar. The last ingredient that we're gonna add is the sea salt, and for the first time probably in my life, I'm going to actually measure it because I really want it to be exact. Lost my spoon, didn't I? So it calls for 2 teaspoons of sea salt. So I've got 1 teaspoon of sea salt. Because when it comes to a dish or like how this is a butter and it's salted, like it's got salted in the name, salted caramel, I really want it to have the desired effect. Whoever, the people who created this recipe, that could really vary with the salt, so I want to follow the recipe on that one. And that's it. We're not adding anything else to this. Those are our ingredients. And so our last step here is to put the lid on diagonally, like so that it can, the steam can escape and this can thicken. And we have to come and stir it every 30 minutes for 3 to 4 hours until this is nice and thick. Because, I mean, look, this is soup. It's not thick at all. And you want to be able to pick it up and when you put your finger through it, it holds its shape. It doesn't come back together. But I do want to taste this really quick, I think. And I'm sure the flavors will change slightly as it cooks over time, but I want to know what we're getting ourselves into here. I've never made anything like this before. I made the apple preserves that you saw in the apple video, and that's the closest that I've ever came to making anything like this, and I'm really excited about it. I love how much learning we've done this year. Oh my goodness. Oh, that is so good. You know what? How I really want to eat this right now? Spread on an English muffin. But I would first put a layer of real butter on the English muffin and then scoop some of that on top of it. Ooh, that would be so good. This is delicious. This is very decadent. That salt tastes so good in there. This is awesome. My crock pot is on high. I have it set for, actually, you know what? I need to set it for 30 minutes. And I will, no, because that shuts it off. So I'm gonna set it for 2 hours, and I'll set an alarm on my phone to come stir it every 30 minutes. My pears are going in the water bath canner for 20 minutes, and we still have to deal with the pears that I have down in the freezer. All right, you guys, now we can talk about vacuum sealing these pears. So here is my food saver. The only thing that I have to complain about is that the cord is so dang short. So this is as far this way as I can move it. But I am going to open it up, and I'm going to make my own bag here. I love the make your own sized bag situation. You can buy bags that are already pre-cut, but I like doing it this way. So I just pull it down so that this is the strip that seals it. So I just pull this down so that there's a little bit of plastic beyond it, and you close it. You push this to operate, and a light will come on, and we're just sealing. We're not vacuuming. So I just hit the seal button, and I wait for it to turn off. Okay, so the seal button turned off, which means it's done. So you put it to open on the side here. You open it up, and now you have a nice edge here. And so if you tried to pull this apart, it's sealed. And so the bottom of our bag has been created. So then you pull it down to whatever size you want it to be. This is where the blade is here. And so this is the entirety of the bag. I'm going to freeze these into 2 batches. So I think I want this to be a little bit longer because you have to leave enough space for you to be able to close it. And there you go. So now I'm gonna go ahead and fill my bag with half of my pears, which, by the way, these got left in there a lot longer than just an hour, and they are frozen solid, which is perfect, works for me. I'm gonna fill this bag with half of them. I purposely freeze things in smaller quantities because with it just being Tom and I often cook and bake in smaller quantities, and so I wouldn't want to freeze a whole bunch of pears in one bag because I likely would not use them all at one time. So I do that with a lot of things, actually. I have cute little snack packs of bell peppers downstairs, chopped bell peppers, because I often just want to throw them in a soup or in a lasagna, and I don't want to have one Ziploc bag full of 6 chopped bell peppers because I likely, unless I was doing a preserving day, other than that I likely wouldn't use that many at one time. And I like to lay them out flat so that it'll vacuum seal flat. And then you just stick the open part into this green catch here, which the green catch catches any possible liquid that may come out. And you want to make sure that it's nice and flat, especially over the black strip, because that's what's going to seal it, and you want it to seal flat and correctly. You close it, and this time you're going to hit the vacuum button because we are both vacuuming and sealing. It'll vacuum first, and when it thinks it is sufficiently vacuumed, the vacuum will shut off and it'll seal. You do have the option of stopping the vacuum process. When I vacuum sealed my blueberries, I didn't want to let it vacuum all the way through because it would crush the blueberries. So I waited until I thought it was sufficiently vacuumed, and then you just hit the seal button and it'll stop vacuuming and start sealing. And then when both the vacuum and the seal light both turn off, this is done. So you can open it, and there you have vacuum sealed pears. And they're really like dense and tight and wonderful. I absolutely love vacuum sealed food. It's just so satisfying. Look at how pretty. And so I usually have a Sharpie in here, but I think I moved it. I did. Let me grab it really quick. All right, and I don't feel the need to write pears. You know what? No, I am gonna write pears because I feel like these could be mistaken for apples. So on the side that's smooth, I'm gonna write pears, and I'm gonna write just the month and the year. So it is October 2022. And there we go. These are ready for the freezer. So I'm gonna do the exact same thing now to the other half. So, you know, to me, freezing is a no-brainer because, and I've said this before, not everybody has the means to can or the desire to can, but almost everybody has a freezer. So I like giving freezer options for food preservation as well because it's more manageable for a wider array of people. And I think that's wonderful. Again, I really love the Food Saver. I'll put the model here on the screen because I can't remember off the top of my head which one it is and I don't want to get it wrong. And I'll put a link to it as well down in the description if you're interested in purchasing one. Tom got it for me for my birthday, and I've used, which was in July, just a few months ago, and I've used the heck out of it. And if you want to see evidence of that, stay tuned because I will be doing a pantry tour soon. And I'm going to include my freezer. I know that a lot of people film those separately, do a freezer tour and do a pantry tour, but the whole point is that I want to show you realistic food preservation for a first-year homesteader. This is my first year really trying to do this, so I'm going to show you both my pantry and my freezer and show you what I ended up with my first year. So I'm going to throw these down in my deep freezer. I have already stirred the pear butter a couple of times and it is thickening up nicely, but it definitely needs some more time. And my pears that I water bath canned are done. I think I can show you one. So yeah, a little bit of float down there. You can't even, it doesn't even look to me like you can really see it, just a little bit. But I think those are packed in there pretty nicely. They're very pretty and I'm really excited to add these to my pantry shelves. Well, hi. It is the next morning. I was so tired last night, I literally fell asleep in what I was wearing. And I woke up, you ever do that and you wake up the next morning and you're like, what happened? Yeah, so here's what happened. The pear butter took a ridiculously long time to cook down in the crock pot. I was texting my friend Heidi about it last night and we agreed that Ball was probably trying to switch things up and keep it interesting. Having us make this in the crock pot. 100% if you make this, and I'll be leaving the link down in the description, follow it, except make it on the stove, not in the crock pot. That took, and maybe it was just my crock pot. It's new, I got it as a wedding gift. I cooked it on high for, let's see, I started it around 2 o'clock. 7 hours. Almost 7 hours it took to cook down in the crock pot. And even then, because I was so tired, I was way ready to go to bed. It wasn't done. I ended up, it had still so much left to cook down that the recipe says you'll get 4 half-pint jars. I have 5. I needed to cook it down a whole nother half-pint jar for it to be the way the recipe said it should be. However, when it comes to consistency, that's usually just a preference thing. And I was stirring it around last night when I finally decided to can it, and I was like, I was trying to picture it on an English muffin, and I was fine with the consistency. If you make it on the stove instead of the crock pot, I definitely think you'll be able to cook it down a lot faster. 7 hours in the crock pot, and it wasn't done. It could have kept going. Crazy. Anyway, I ended up with 5 half-pint jars of salted caramel pear butter. The important thing is it tasted so good. It was delicious. Oh, that's right. I saved some to show you guys. That's right. That's right. Yeah. Oh no. This is fine. I'm really happy with this consistency. It's not as thick as it's supposed to be, but I'm pretty happy with it. And then now I tasted it last night, but I was like apparently living in a dream last night, so let's taste it. Oh my goodness. The dark brown sugar mixed with the pears themselves alone is delicious. But then having that saltiness in there as well, that's really good. This is a success. I will be making the other 2 batches of this to have, and it was a win. The muffins, this is all that's left of them. Tom and I ate some yesterday. I gave some to my neighbor. I packed them in lunches today. This is all that's left. They'll definitely get eaten this weekend. This was a success. I will post the recipe down in the description. They were very, very good. I ended up with, what is this, 6 to 8 pint jars of canned pears. They turned out really nice as well. I definitely have to wash these jars before putting them on my shelves because they're very sticky. That's the only complaint I have about this recipe. It was difficult for me to have the appropriate amount of headspace while packing in as many pears as I could, because I would have too much headspace. So I would add in more pears, but then adding in more pears would cause the juice the syrup to overflow. So my counter, I had to wipe it down like 4 times last night. The jars are super sticky. So working with a syrup like that, I just have to learn how to be more efficient is all. But it's done now, and I'm really happy to have these. We will definitely eat these over the winter time. All in all, you guys, I think that preserving food like I have been in the last, few videos has been so much fun, such a blast. Definitely a learning experience, as you have seen. But that's part of it, and you learn through doing. And if any of you want to start getting into this, but you're afraid because you don't have the skills or you don't think that you'll be able to do it, put all of those thoughts in the garbage and just do it. Because what do you have to lose? I mean, really, you can't get proficient in something and excel in something unless you start doing it. None of this was a fail, because here we are. We've got, safe, delicious canned stuff going on the shelves. Did it take me a pretty long time yesterday? Yes. Like some of the YouTubers that I follow could have probably accomplished these things in 3 hours. It took me all day to do these projects yesterday. But the more I do it, the better and quicker I'll be at it, and the more food I'll have on the shelves. So let this be your motivation. Just do it. Bite the bullet. Give it a shot. What do you have to lose, So you guys, thank you so much for hanging out with me in the kitchen today. In this video yesterday. I really, really, really appreciate it, and I hope that you got something from this. I hope you try these recipes. They'll be down in the description. If you liked this, give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more preserving content in the future, please consider subscribing, because I do have things in the freezer that I've been hanging on to, and I'll be doing more preserving in the wintertime. I also have some really, really delicious recipes planned out, because once it starts snowing outside, well, really now, because the garden's been put to bed, we're going to be spending a lot of time in the kitchen together, and I have been sitting on these recipes all summer waiting for my moment to shine. So stay tuned for that. And guys, thank you so much. I hope you have an awesome day. Bye.